Hello and good day to everyone. Welcome back to today's new video. Now, as you can see, we'll be getting started with a somewhat new piece of software today. If you use the bootable recovery system such as Hiren's Boot CD or made your own Windows portable environment, you may have ran into this software before. This is called MiniTool Partition Wizard, complete with many wanted features that are missing out of the common Windows disk utility toolset found in Administrative Tools, if you didn't know. With MiniTool Partition Wizard, you've got many useful features at your disposal, including migrating your OS to another system, helpful if you're wanting to migrate Grandma's Windows 7 laptop off that rusty old 5400 RPM drive to a fancy new Samsung Evo SSD, copying partitions to other drives from source, cloning an entire disk, and even partition recovery management. Maybe you accidentally overwrote your Hannah Montana Linux install with Arch in one of our last tutorials. Now let's get started. First, let's take a look into the partition recovery feature. This is useful for a variety of reasons, but it's important to understand how deletion first works on a computer. When you delete data in a common setup, such as Windows 10 11 laptop with no extra features, this data still resides within your system, but is marked for deletion. As new files are written to your computer, this chunk of data is overwritten after being marked. However, if some or all of your data has not yet been overwritten, you can use Partition Wizard's recovery feature to get back that lost data. Let's see it in action. First, we have an attached NVMe drive. I previously wiped all of our old partitions from an old Linux server install off of it, but I have not initiated secure wipe on the NVMe. For demonstration reasons, we have some data we need to get back on this disk, so let's start the recovery process. First, looking at our dashboard here, we're given two drives. The first one is our current machine's boot drive. The reason we know this is first, disk 1 contains an EFI boot partition utilized by Windows Boot Manager. Additionally, this system is configured with BitLocker and Partition Wizard, and Partition Wizard, has picked up on that through the file system name on C. We can see this right here on BitLocker with the mount part C right here. Finally, we plugged in the NVMe enclosure that was made by Sabrent, which Partition Wizard has made known to us as the manufacturer information by a disk number, as you can see here, Sabrent USB. Now, if we go into the left side panel here, under Wizard, we can see Partition Recovery Wizard right here. If we click here, we'll hit next, and then from here we can select the source that we want to recover from. As we specified earlier, this is going to be that Sabrent USB on disk 2 right here. If we hit next, we have three different options to scan range. The full disk, which will scan obviously everything on the disk. Unallocated space, if we only want to scan the free partitions, maybe we deleted something that is now unallocated. Or if we know the specific sector or area of the sector that was deleted, we can specify that range right here, such as the starting and ending LBA right there. For this demonstration, we are not aware of where that was, so we're going to scan the entire disk. If we hit next, we can do a quick scan. This is useful, for example, if you maybe just deleted this or if you just overwrote it. In many common cases, quick scan will be useful. However, if the disk has crashed, you're still able to access it, or if a fatal mistake has been made, or some sort of situation where this data has possibly been overwritten, or it's been, months, years since that data has been essentially recovered, or present on the disk, a full scan may be in order. The full scan should be used if you're not able to also scan using the quick scan system, if you're not able to find that missing partition or data. For this demonstration, we'll go ahead and continue with the quick scan method. If we hit next, it'll immediately get started, and it'll scan the entire disk for any missing partitions or partitions that have previously been deleted off the system. We'll give this a moment here, and we'll come right back to it. And now that we've waited about an hour, I'd say, we started this about 2 p.m. and it is currently 3:30. For reference here, this is a 256 gig M.2 SSD plugged in via a Type-C Sabrent enclosure. So there's going to be a little bit of a bandwidth restriction here, but for the most part, it took about an hour for 256 gigs on a pretty fast storage system. So we did successfully, though, get the ext4 partitions here. I'm not sure what this one exactly was for, and I believe this one was our main Linux system running Arch Linux on here. And then this, I believe, was our legacy BIOS system. But from here, we can essentially recover each of these partitions. We'll go ahead and do so just like that. And it looks like some of it got a little messed up, which is, like I said, when you write to the system after deleting files, some information can get a little messed up. This is nothing with partition recovery, but this is more how you treat the system after things have been deleted. But we can now go finish, it'll rewrite those, and then once we're done, we can do apply, yes, and then it'll continue writing or rewriting those partitions essentially to that system, where then we can boot back into it, we can see what was going on, things like that. And then when we do need to delete those partitions, we can just go in, hit delete, and right click, delete just like that, and delete right here. And then once we're done, once again, just hit apply, and yes. All right, next, let's check out the Copy Partition Wizard. We see here, I've made a virtual disk within our disk tools here on Microsoft Windows, and we have our Elite Hacks code here stored, and where if we go into our File Explorer, we have that script right there, and go, let's see, let file location, right in D, we run that, and it gives us the message box. Basic information, basic data on this partition, right? But let's say we want to clone that into our Sabrent USB disk here. Well, what we can do is if we go into Copy Partition Wizard right here, we'll hit next, and then we're going to select the source partition we wish to copy. That will be our Elite Hacks code right here on D. If we hit next, we're going to select the destination, which is going to be disk 2 right here. And let's select this partition in particular. Okay, and now it gives us the overview of what's going to be copied, where to, and then the size and location. We'll keep this all the same, and we'll designate it as a primary partition. If we finish, apply that, and yes, it'll copy over that partition with our new data. And as you can see here, that Sabrent USB now has that. And if we go here, this PC, we can see we now have 2 duplicate partitions of the same data. So D was our previous one, E is our new one, and it has the same exact data we had before. This is very useful if you want to copy over maybe a system partition, recovery partitions, or otherwise data that you don't need to clone the entire drive for. Now that we've copied only the partitions, let's try copying the entire disk. Offsite, I did create 3 new partitions on our brand new 16 gig virtual disk. And what we're going to do is we're going to clone this entire drive with all of its partitions over to our Sabrent disk. First, we'll go over to the Copy Disk Wizard, hit Next, and select our source disk. That will be the MSFT virtual disk right here. Second, we'll select our new Sabrent USB, and then we can either do fit partitions to entire disk, which means that these will be resized, as you can see here. The partition 3 will be resized to 119 gigs, which previously was 8, I believe, yep. So this is P3, which P3 currently is at 7.96 gigs. P2 is at 59.7, and P1, as these were both 4 gigs before. And then our, I believe this is the overhead for our GPT disk. In this one right here, 16 megs was previously 16 megs. This is most likely metadata information regarding the disk layout and partitioning. So this will also be copied over but not resized. But as you can see here, it'll resize them as seen fit, or you can copy them without resizing, leaving the rest of the disk to be used. We'll go ahead and fit the partitions to the entire disk, hit next. If you boot from GPT, remember to change BIOS mode to UEFI, yep, and then finish. Now it's been laid out, we can hit apply, and that same situation where we copy just one partition will now happen to all 3, and all that information will be cloned over to our Sabrent disk. We'll give it some time to take care of all this, and we'll come right back to it. And we're back now. As you can see, we have all 3 of those partitions now cloned over to our Sabrent USB. The new one at 59.66 with partition 1 and 2, from the 3.98 or the 4 gigs I did previously set, but once again overhead. And then the partition 3 is at 119.07 gigs, which was previously at 7.96 gigs. This was resized to the disk here because the original 7.96 and these 2 right here would have not fit into the entire disk. It would have been too small. So with MiniTool Partition Wizard, it essentially upped the size, per se, to the partitions. That way everything would fit. You can resize, re-image. This is very convenient if you're looking to, for example, our disk here with our Surface Book. Our Surface Book has a 256 gig SSD. If we were to upgrade to a 512 or 1 terabyte SSD, this would be very useful where we can copy and clone all this data over into a bigger drive. It would resize everything for us, and that way we can use the full power of that larger system. Same concept here when it comes to our virtual disk. We had two 4 gig partitions and that 8 gig partition. We were able to effectively send all that data over to our new disk, resize it, and use the full potential of that brand new Sabrent disk. Now earlier we looked into the partition recovery part of MiniTool Partition Wizard. What about the data recovery part? Let's take a quick look. If we go into the data recovery tab right here, it'll open up a new window within the wizard here, and then we can select any one of these that we can recover data off of. Just for fun, we're going to go ahead and run a scan on our C drive, our main operating system for Windows, and see what comes up and see what kind of files we can recover. Maybe previously deleted files, files that have been partially overwritten, or maybe it's just browser cache that has since been deleted. Okay, and for the sake of time here, we let it go for a few minutes before pausing it. As we can see here though, we do have some deleted files that we're able to recover. If we go recycle bin, nothing there. Lost files, we have some in the deleted, dir1 and our metadata. dir1 looks to be a lost directory or lost file. I'm not entirely sure what these ones were for, but if we do go into lost files, raw files right here, we can see all sorts of information. For example, if we pull up GIFs, there's a loading GIF right there. That may have been to an article I was reading earlier regarding, I believe that's Active Directory. There's an emoji, I think that was used for Discord. Another GIF, I'm not sure what that was from. Another GIF here, there, just some extra PNGs, things like that. If we open it up here, we can go into the PNGs and the JPEGs. Open this one up, more lost files, looks like all browser cache data. All sorts of information we can take a look at. And would you look at that? I believe that is related to, let's see, yep. So that was probably to our Cherokee video that we did earlier regarding Starlink into our Grand Cherokee. So as you can see here, MiniTool Partition Wizard is very good at recovering those lost files, those deleted files, information that you otherwise didn't want to delete in the first place, or something that may have been a result of a cracked drive. It is very useful for recovering a lot of this information, and I highly recommend it if you are in a similar ordeal. Now another fancy tool as a part of the MiniTool Partition Wizard Pro, you can take a look at the Space Analyzer. If we go into here and we scan our C drive, we can see all sorts of information regarding disk space usage. That's especially useful, for example, if you're running out of storage in your main drive and you don't have the funds to upgrade just yet to a new, maybe larger SSD, for example. So using this, we can see all sorts of information, what's utilized, how big the files are, things like that. For example here, it looks like a lot of DLL files are taking up space in our system, which is usually normal for the size of Windows. We also have our VHD files, which was our virtual hard disk files. Makes sense. We can delete those since we no longer need them after this tutorial. But we made a 16 gig and an 8 gig, which would about equate to our 18 gigs here, I believe. So no, something around that. I believe some of this is compressed. And then we'd also have system files, applications, zip files. All of these are shown in a convenient chart for us to take a look at, and we can also see it in a directory style here. So we can see, okay, looks like System32 is taking up a lot of space. We may want to delete it. For legal reasons, don't delete System32. It's going to mess up your Windows system. It's a joke. But regardless, it is convenient and a fun way to understand what is taking up space on your drive. That way you can save money without having to upgrade just yet. Now, next up, we have the Disk Benchmark utility within Partition Wizard. If we go into Disk Benchmark right here, we can see that we can specify any one of these drives and we can see what the bandwidth read and write speeds are. For example, if we go into our C drive here, we choose a transfer size between 4 kilobytes and 32 kilobytes with a queue number of 8, 4 threads, 200 megabytes in total with a sequential test mode, and 5 seconds in between. We'll go ahead and start it up. We'll give it a few seconds here. We'll begin getting readings and writings here fairly shortly into a chart, just as you see. We'll give it a minute to compile all of this information. Okay, and now our readings are back. At 32 kilobyte transfer size, we can see that we have 748 megabytes at writing here, as you can see by the green. And blue is our reading, so we can read 1,270 megabytes per second on that 32 kilobyte transfer size. As it went down at 4 kilobytes, we had 411 megabytes write per second, and then we had 473 megabytes reading per second. Excuse me. Here we can get an understanding of how fast our disks truly are. This is especially helpful if, for example, you may have purchased an off-brand SSD off eBay or Amazon, for example, or if you're really trying to test and see where your issues may lie. It's especially useful if, for example, I've had this issue myself, where I've had a Western Digital 3TB hard drive start to go bad. I could tell it was going bad as the I/O speeds were dropping drastically. And this was a drive that advertised a 6 gigabit transfer speed through the SATA systems. Now, yes, you aren't going to get that full 6 gigabits, but previously I was able to move up to 32 megabytes per second off that drive. Doing further testing when the drive started going bad, it was dropping down to 8 megabytes to 4 megabytes and getting worse and worse by the second. So this is especially useful if you're not able to get smart data, for example, from the drive. You can see right here that maybe the drive is going bad or is performing correctly, and maybe you just need to update your CPU. Okay, and now it's finished building that ISO here. We can see it right here. We can plug this into Proxmox, maybe another system, but everything's been assembled and it's ready to go. Now this finalizes our overview and tutorial on how to use the MiniTool Partition Wizard. I hope you guys liked it, and if you have any questions, concerns, as always, leave them down below in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any one of them, or if you also have questions regarding MiniTool as well, you can answer, or excuse me, you can ask a question over at minitool.com, and they have a support line. You can go over there at minitool.com/support.html. Happy to answer any questions, concerns, and help you guys out wherever you may need. Or if you want to get started using MiniTool today, wow, you can go look in the description down below, use my link, and you'll be able to get MiniTool right here available to you, either for free. They do have a free option, or if you're ready, they have a Pro Ultimate version. As you see here, all these features were offered with the Pro Ultimate version. I was able to clone, copy, do recovery, all sorts of useful features. I highly recommend it if you haven't already, taking a look into it and potentially purchasing a license today. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day, y'all.